Welcome everyone to this TLMI educational webinar. I'd like to say hello and welcome to all of you. I'm Rosalind Bandy and I lead sustainability for TLMI. We're partnering today with the Association of Plastic Recyclers to bring you some new information about APR's new Meets Preferred Guidance or MPG program. Our two presenters today are Sandeep Kulkarni and Kurt Kozart. And as usual on these webinars, all of you will be muted. We have about 100 people on this webinar today. So you'll all be muted throughout the webinar, but I certainly invite you to type your questions into the question box in your control panel, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. The PowerPoint presentation will be sent to all of you who attended today after the webinar. Give me a day or two to get that out to you. So with that, I would like to hand off the webinar and the presentation to Sandeep and Kurt. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Roz, and thanks for everybody for attending. And we're really happy to be working with TLMI on this. Certainly we know that labels are a critical component to what we do and what we have at APR. So we're really happy to be talking with you all. So Sandeep, maybe the next slide, please. Maybe. Down at the bottom, there's a, there you go, Sandy.
Yeah.
There you go, thanks. All right, so really, according to the APR Design Guide for Plastic Recyclability, a package is a compilation of design features, and that's really critical to understand when you think about how the design guide looks at things. And the design guide, due to a couple of things, one being written in, or mentioned and referred to now in California law with SB 343, and with referred to and used in the U.S. Plastics Pact, the U.S. Arm of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We've gained a lot of energy, I guess. So, and a lot of questions about this and how it's organized and how it's going to work. And so, it's really critical to understand how it's organized. So it's organized by design features, and those design features are all these things, inks, layers, and size, and color, and all of that. So the way that we would look at a label, we don't look at an entire label. We look at it as a substrate, an adhesive, and an ink or decoration. So that's how it would be looked at here. So think of everything as a design feature. Okay, and then when the package is put together or the label is put together, the label is the compilation of those three design features. So, and then each design feature is classified into a recyclability category. And here's where it gets interesting. Okay, so we have APR preferred, which preferred means that it is that the recyclers take it every day. There's no quality or yield loss or increased cost of recycling that particular item or that particular design feature. We have detrimental recycling. Now, what detrimental to recycling? It really means it's recyclable. We'll accept it every day. We recycle it every day, but it has some of those implications. It either has, like I said, a yield loss, a quality implication, a negative quality implication, or a undue cost of processing there, but it is still recyclable. Now, renders the package not recyclable. That is one design feature that if you use it, the entire package just completely gets thrown out. And that's important to understand because it's not just a worse quality concern or quality impact than what a detrimental feature is. It is actually, it gets completely thrown away. Something that would do that would be something that's too small, so it physically doesn't get captured and go where it needs to go. Something that can't be sorted by near infrared, so the optical sorter doesn't even see it. So if you use a particular color, PVC label. So PVC is so egregious, so you use that label on a bottle that is otherwise completely recyclable, and you condemn the whole bottle. That whole thing gets thrown away because of that particular design feature renders the package not recyclable. Then we have items that require testing. Okay, and we just don't know what they are, so it requires testing. Now, on something to consider here is in that preferred category. So according to California, to the new law that's been signed by the governor, okay, something's going to need to be preferred in order to be recyclable in California. We're still trying to work all of that out. It's the first time we've been referred to in law. So, but think of it that way. But something needs to be preferred. Also, something needs to be preferred in order to pass the U.S. Plastics Pact. Okay, so Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And then thirdly, it has to be listed preferred. New program by the Recycling Partnership, the Pathway to Circularity, will also require it to be preferred. So no longer is something going to need to be acceptable if you care about one of those three entities. Can it be recyclable yet detrimental? Okay, so something really important. So if you look at the think of how the design guide is. So we have each one of these rows is a design feature, and then we have the recycling categories in the columns. So it's really just a big grid, and then you choose, what if you're looking at an entire package, what would be, what's applicable there. Now, way to look at this is that the recyclable categories are preferred and detrimental and renders the package not recyclable. Those are established products. Those are knowns. So we're able to say, for instance, a paper label on this bottle is detrimental. Okay? But maybe there's a new product out there, and we say, required testing. So if you think about that, we have both the knowns, which are first three categories, and then our unknowns, which is that requires testing over there. So when we do our current tests, everybody knows the critical guidance test. So when we do a critical guidance test, we're really looking at those unknowns. So hey, what happens with those unknowns? But what if we have something in that preferred category? We don't have any kind of recognition program for that. Say, hey, hey, you used all the right stuff. We know it's right. We didn't have to go out and test to see if it was right or if it was preferred. So we've already listed it, but there's no program for that. So what we've created is this a new program that would look at items that are in that preferred category. So things that are already known, that we've already listed and mentioned. So with that, that's what the new Meets Preferred Guidance program is to recognize things. And for instance, it could be a substrate, so a substrate of a label would be a design feature, or it could be a compilation of design features. Like I said, it could be the label that is the adhesive, the print, and the substrate together. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sandeep Kulkarni, who runs the MPG and critical guidance programs for us at APR.
Great, thanks for that excellent introduction, Kurt. And again, from my side, I welcome everyone who's attending this webinar. It's definitely a pleasure to be here today and to talk about the Meets Preferred Guidance program. So as Kurt has already said, the MPG program is really designed to recognize recyclability of well-established products. So as you said, these are products that have been in the market, or recyclers have experience with handling these, and there's no detrimental features to those. So it really applies to situations where there is no new innovation involved. So that's the key thing to keep in mind. And as we already said, recyclers have a level of comfort in processing these items. So there's really no risk of disrupting the existing recycling processes with these design features. How can the MPG program help the industry? There's actually a few different ways where this brings value. For some time now, material suppliers have been requesting the APR for some sort of a confirmation or recognition that their packaging or their design elements meet the criteria of being preferred, or that fall into that preferred category that Kurt talked about already. And in this case, as he said, critical guidance is either not appropriate or even not needed, because these are design features that have already been in the market. So there's really no need to conduct a full critical guidance testing on these type of materials. So in this case, MPG recognition provides basically an assurance that a particular item or design feature is designed to be preferred according to the APR design guide. In terms of what it helps, it helps, let's say, brand owners or large companies, is that it provides a credible recognition that a product meets the APR preferred design guidance. It falls into that preferred category. It also provides purchasing agents or procurement teams within, let's say, a large brand who are going out to specify maybe a label for a new bottle that they're introducing. They can actually say that, okay, we want something that's MPG recognized, so they don't have to worry about having conducting any testing or requiring any background information. So it provides a peace of mind that they're actually specifying that's an element that's been preferred from a recyclability standpoint. Also, this is the recognition process involves a review by a globally recognized third party, which is the APR. And finally, as Kurt has already referred to it, this recognition can help support a company's sustainability goals and claims, and also companies that are part of the US Plastics Pact, for instance, can use this to support their claims about their design elements, such as labels, being preferred and thus designed for recyclability. In terms of what it takes to include a design feature into the MPG program, we've laid out some clear steps so that it's actually very transparent, and there is like oversight involved in this process. So first of all, what we need to do is to include something into the MPG list, or for it to be MPG eligible. A design feature needs to have clearly established criteria for the preferred category in the design guide. So we've gone back and looked at what the design guide says, and making sure that everything is accurate, so that when we include a particular feature on the MPG list, we have the information in the design guide to kind of back that up. And secondly, we need approval from the appropriate APR technical committee that a particular item is suitable and can be included on the MPG list. So it's not just myself and Kurt and a few of us sitting around and saying, okay, let's put this on the MPG list. We are actually vetting it out with the appropriate APR technical committee, and we're kind of getting their blessing and approval to include the design feature on the list of MPG candidates. As I think, as Roz had mentioned earlier, and also Kurt has referred to, labels are a key part of this program, and the reason is that labels are a key element of pretty much most packages that you look at. And the other key feature about labels is that labels need to be appropriately designed to ensure that there is no negative impact on recyclability of a complete package. So for instance, if you look at a bottle, as Kurt already mentioned, you might have a bottle that's perfectly designed, it's fully recyclable, but then you have let's say a paper label on that PET bottle. That can actually make it either detrimental, or in some cases it can actually throw away or cause the bottle to be thrown away. For instance, a PVC element on the bottle. So we have to make sure that the label has to be appropriately designed so that there is no impact on the recyclability of the full package. And also each element of the label should be designed for recyclability. So you have to look at the label stock or the base material, the adhesive that you're using, and the inks that are being used. And what APR's position is that we recommend that when we are using labels, you use what are going to be defined as preferred labels within the APR design guide. And I have a little picture there on the side which shows the sort of things that can render a package detrimental. For instance, full body shrink labels that are not designed appropriately, or maybe pressure sensitive labels which have maybe the wrong kind of adhesive and so on. So our goal with this program is to define or lay out what is defined by a preferred label, and how do you go about verifying that. So where we are right now in terms of including labels within the MPG program is that for PET, we already have the updated design guidance that has been approved by the PET Technical Committee. So we are right now in the process of putting that together and including it on our website and also within the design guidance document. We are also in the process of creating some supporting MPG documentation, for instance, like a resource document which tells somebody who wants to apply for the program what the background is and what they need to provide us. We are also updating some of the test methods so that companies can do some of this testing either in their own lab or in a third-party lab. And the expected timing, I would say, I kind of conservatively put it as April, May. We expect that it's probably going to be somewhat sooner than that, but definitely within the next month to month and a half, we hope to have this program rolled out for labels. In terms of high-density polyethylene containers, we also, even with that case as well, we have an updated design guidance that has been approved by the Olefins Technical Committee. And again, we are putting together some of the supporting documentation before we launch the program. And the expected timing, I would say, is again more or less the same for labels for colored HDPE containers. We are looking at elements of what it would take to include labels for natural HDPE, but that's a little further out. So to give you a flavor of what kind of I guess design guidance or updated design guidance we are going to be including in the APR design guide for labels. In the case of PET, APR guidance going forward will be that hot caustic resistant inks are going to be preferred on floating olefin films. So things like pressure sensitive labels and cut and stack labels, which will float. We will require that hot caustic wash resistant inks be used in those labels. Wash off inks are going to be preferred with crystallizable PET film labels, so like your shrink films, which sink. So you want to have wash off labels so the ink washes off and it does not contaminate the PET. Or inks that are printed directly on the surface of a PET package. The adhesives that are going to be used for specifically like a wraparound label or cut and stack labels should be presented as needs testing in the APR design guide. And the reason for this is that even though right now we call out any kind of adhesive as acceptable, we have seen quite a few detrimental features sometimes with the wrong type of adhesive being used, and it causes concerns with the recycled material. So going forward, we'll be presenting adhesives for wraparound labels as needs testing. And finally, paper labels are going to be detrimental to PET recycling. I think many of you know that paper labels cause a lot of issues in the PET recycling process. So those will be called out as detrimental. In terms of labels for high-density polyethylene containers, olefin labels, so like polyethylene or polypropylene film labels are going to be preferred for use with high-density polyethylene containers. Shrink and stretch wrap labels are preferred because they can actually be separated quite easily from the HTP packaging. Floating labels should be olefin films that can be recovered with the HTP bottle granulate. And the reason for this is that we want to keep the labels as far as possible in a circular economy. So if you use a label that sinks, for instance, PET type of label that sinks, you are actually losing that label, and it's ending up essentially being lost and not recoverable. Direct printed inks and heat transfer labels are preferred for use with mixed color HDPE containers, and they provide the benefit of requiring no label film. So again, this is I think a big plus, because you're not sacrificing any film or losing out any yield because of the film. And again, paper labels are always detrimental to HDPE recycling. So what I've tried to do is show you a snapshot of the type of design guidance for labels that we will be including as a part of our MPG program, and what we'll be considering as we include labels into the MPG program. Finally, I want to just leave you with a couple of things that, as I think Kurt has already referred to, the importance of labels and why MPG can bring a lot of value to the area of labels. First of all, as many of you know, labels have been specifically called out in the US Plastic Pact's problematic and unnecessary materials list that was actually published just about a week ago. And what they say in that list is problematic label constructions are called out, which includes adhesives, inks, materials, for instance, PETG, PVC, PLA paper, that should be, and formats that should be avoided, formats or materials or features that render a package detrimental or non-recyclable. And they specifically call out the APR design guide as the guiding document for this feature. And also they say that labels should meet the APR preferred guidance for coverage and compatibility, and be tested in any areas where this is unclear. So again, I think the clear guidance is to meet the APR preferred design guide, which again leads back to the MPG program. So what we believe is that MPG recognition for labels, which can include, as I said earlier, the base stock, the adhesive, the ink, will provide an assurance for brands that are part of the US Plastics Pact and are also signatories to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation global commitment that they are using the right kind of labels in their package, so that their packaging is designed for recyclability. I've talked about labels as a part of this program. In addition to labels, we're also working on including other design features. Right now, we already have dispensers as a part of this program, and we have already recognized 3 companies through the MPG program. In the future, we'll also be including PET-based resin caps and closures for PET. I've already talked about labels, caps and closures for high density, and also down the road, we'll be looking at complete packages. So both that will include the label, cap, closure, so the whole 9 yards. One of the things I will mention is that as a part of the MPG program, we're not trying to give an easy pass to anyone. So we will be requiring certain amount of verification, testing, and even some lab scale testing, depending on the specific design feature that we are considering. And we'll be putting more instructions into the resource document in terms of what's needed as far as testing is concerned. So with that, I'll wrap up this presentation, and my contact information here is included. As Kurt mentioned, I'm the program administrator for both the MPG program as well as the Critical Guidance Recognition program. So if you have any questions, or if you'd like to find out more about when labels will be part of this program, please reach out to me, and happy to discuss this topic further. So I guess with that, I'll hand it back to you, Roz, and happy to answer any questions that may have come up.
Yeah, and Sandeep, it's Kurt. So I would like to add that, you know, we've heard, I've gotten a lot of frustration and questions from both sides here. So we get, you know, label manufacturers or converters or substrate manufacturers, that say, hey, look, I designed something that is good. It's, you know, it's an improvement, but nobody's really, the market share, the market's not picking it up. And it's really going to help recycling, right? And we all agree that's going to help recycling. But then on the other side, we hear a lot of information from brands that say, hey, look, this label thing, it's just complicated. So how can you make it easier for me? And I think part of the market acceptability of this is because it is complicated. So we're trying to simplify it for folks. And we have brands that are considering making MPG consideration or critical guidance consideration, part of their their purchasing requirements, that they're going to start asking that. When they ask us, we say, hey, make sure you get that letter. Don't that recognition letter. Don't go out and just somebody tells you, oh, I've got the same thing as whoever. Go ahead and make sure that happens. So we're trying to help both sides here to make this this complicated issue more simple, and then therefore help the entire industry with primarily quality and yield.
Thank you, Kurt. And I can attest to hearing those exact comments over the years. So I think this is a really exciting move in the right direction. So we have a bunch of questions that I'm ready to read off to you, and to the attendees, keep typing them in there. We've got a half an hour here to cover these questions. So if you have a question, no question is stupid. Don't hesitate to ask. Just type it right in there. So here's one just to confirm. If a company wants to, quote unquote, certify a substrate, let's say polypropylene, would that company need to include some kind of qualifier regarding the ink and the adhesive? It couldn't just be the polypropylene itself.
Want me to take that, Sandeep?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the polypropylene itself would be a design feature. Okay. So depending on how we roll this out, we could, we're going to call a polypropylene label preferred, right? So we don't see right now the need to have MPG just for a polypropylene film, say. Really, it would be, look at the label as maybe the ink and the adhesive, and so that's the way we're looking at it as entire group. For some other things, it might be individual, let's say crystallizable PET, because those are individually recognized through critical guidance. But for something, it's a standard item like BOPP, it's probably just accepted, and it would be the converter that would ask for the MPG program or recognition.
All right, next question. Is there a preference on self-adhesive labels on colored HDPE to be removed or stay adhered to the bottle during the wash? In other words, if the label stays on the HDPE bottle, can it still meet the MPG criteria?
Yeah, maybe I'll start, and then I think Kurt can add on to that. Yeah, I mean, I think if the label stays with the bottle, it can still be preferred because I think we're also including things like in-mold labels as a part of the criteria. So I think what we've heard from recyclers is that given the small amount of label, I mean, the weight of the label is so small compared to the bottle typically, and especially if it's a polyethylene label, for instance, on a high density polyethylene bottle, it's actually not causing any issue at all. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be the label doesn't necessarily have to be washed off. It can be part of the HDPE stream. So Kurt, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think that, and I think we also, the label, to your point, Sandy, we always prefer a like label and a like container, so HDPE and HDPE. We know that that doesn't always happen. So we even allow polypropylene on HDPE. Both of those could be preferred.
Great, thank you. And here's a question about thermoforms, and I'm assuming that the asker is referencing PET thermoforms, but they didn't specify. But is it possible for a paper label on a PET thermoform to ever be considered anything but detrimental?
You want me to take that, Sandeep?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the PET thermoforms are, as everybody knows, or a lot of people know, is a super hot topic right now. Currently, bale specs for PET bottle bales allow 10% of PET thermoforms to be placed in them. Everywhere, maybe not everywhere, we might find a couple cases, but in general, everywhere except for California, thermoforms are put into that bottle bale. So they are processed just like a bottle, okay, a PET bottle. So they're going to be treated, they end up in that PET PCR or that rPET stream. So until or if it ever even happens, there is a separate bale for PET thermoforms. It will a paper label will always be detrimental. Now, let's say if they did get created, if they were pulled out into a separate bale, we would create different guidance for that. However, there's a lot of challenges for that. One is look at the price of a thermoform bale versus a bottle bale. Basically, it's 25% of it. So, why would anybody want to spend money to pull them out to get 25% of what you could have otherwise gotten? The other that they generally have a very large label compared to weight. So that label has a lot of impact on quality. And because it's a pressure sensitive label, generally, that pressure sensitive adhesive has a significant impact on quality. So a big push in California and in the bottle streams is get those pressure sensitive labels with a recycle friendly, washable inks, and make them a polymer of some sort and avoid paper. So a lot of stuff happening in there in the thermoform arena.
Thanks, Kurt. This question is from a label converter. So as not to go through expensive testing, if we use an already recognized wash-off adhesive in the case of PSL or PET-C in the case of shrink, with the right ink system, such as it stays or removes depending on if it's PET or HDPE, as long as we ensure it sorts properly with third-party or a handheld scanner and shows a lab scale test that the ink and film sinks and floats, depending on the type of package, then we will fall within the MPG question?
Yes, that's exactly. I think that's absolutely correct. So I think, and that's the major difference between the critical guidance program and the MPG program, because again, I think if these features have been shown to be preferred, we allow, for instance, let's say an ink supplier to carry out the benchmark testing in their lab as long as they're following the APR protocol, and kind of demonstrate to us that they have carried out the protocol according to our guidelines. They don't have to go through sort of the level of extensive testing that the critical guidance requires. So I think I would say that's correct. Again, depending on, I guess, when they were looking to do this, the best thing would be to reach out to me, and we can have a discussion on what testing is needed and how they can conduct that.
So,
Yeah.
and that's a really good comment, Sandeep, that I've been thinking about this. So exactly like what type of testing? Let's say you're using a label substrate, an ink, and an adhesive that has all gone through some kind of APR testing, whether it's benchmark or preferred guidance, and you're using those that, we would assume would be on your MPG list. You're using all of those materials in your label. What kind, where would you need to send it? Or could you do the testing if you have and have your own lab in your building? Could you do your own testing and send the results to you to pass MPG? Or how would that work? What kind of lab would need to do the final recognition to send to you?
Yeah, I think that's as you said, that's exactly correct. If they have the equipment and the facilities in their lab, let's say to conduct a float sink test or a wash-off test, and provide us that information, as I said earlier, as long as they're doing it according to the APR protocols and they're following the right steps, we can accept that. They can, if they don't have the facilities or the equipment within their system, they can always send it out to a third-party lab to conduct that again with the right, following the right protocol. So we've created that flexibility where somebody who's submitting for the MPG approval can conduct their own testing and provide us that background data.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just might add, Roz, that that's all those tests have already been done. Like when you say, okay, I used an adhesive that was made by somebody that's got critical guidance, and we used an ink that somebody already did the critical guidance, and I used a substrate, and I'm just putting all these pieces together. Now you are going to have some, in order to be preferred, there is going to be a coverage concern. There's going to be a limitation to the coverage so that we know that it does sort right? Or you're going to have to go out and actually do that sort test. And I don't know anybody that has that equipment themselves, but those tests are are very cheap compared to a full-scale critical guidance test. And I should mention that there is a price for this. It's much lower than full-scale testing. So there's a price for to apply for the MPG program. But what you do is you submit your bill of materials. So say I use this and I use this and I use this, and then you have a review committee that says, okay, all of those are okay, check, I'm okay, or oh, by the way, you need to do this test. So there are some things that you'll need to be tested, and it allows some flexibility. So you might be able to go from this adhesive user to, this adhesive manufacturer to this adhesive manufacturer, because they both have critical guidance already. But you're not allowed to go from a critical guidance adhesive manufacturer to one that you believe is the same, but has not performed critical guidance. So that's how the program works and kind of keeps the checks and balances.
Okay, so if a full label substrate has already met critical guidance, then it is included in the MPG program.
Yeah, it will be one of the components for it. Yes.
Okay. For labels that would stay on containers for recycling, do they need to be surface printed and have wash-off inks and or primer?
You want to talk about that, Sandeep, or you want me?
Well, I mean, I think we want to minimize the impact of the ink. So in that case, yeah, I would say probably it would need wash-off inks. But yeah, I guess yeah, if you want to add to that, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, it depends. I think it depends on the bottle that's attached to. So if it's on a colored PET bottle, you know, it doesn't. It's not a big deal. Okay. If it's on a PET bottle, you know, hence the crystallizable PET, like we say that. Well, not that it would stay on the bottle, but it would stay with the bottle stream. We want the ink to come off and not bleed onto the PET. So, you know, we have to. That's why this is kind of a complicated discussion, because it depends on what the bottle is. If you put that on a milk jug, you know, and we're not, and the reason we haven't shown that is it gets more complicated, because, you know, do we want to have a natural HDPE have have some color put in there? Probably not. Same reason for PET. So it really depends on the polymer, and I encourage you to look at the design guidance by polymer. Don't think of it just as a label that can go on everything.
Great, thanks. When you say hot caustic resistant inks in terms of labels for PET, are you referring to a de-inking technology or an ink retentive technology?
Well, what that refers to is actually the wash the wash process when the PET bottle is going through the hot caustic wash. Normally, that's used in a recycling process. So that's where if you have a hot caustic wash resistant ink, it will actually stay with the label. It won't come off, and that way it won't end up. There's less of a chance of it contaminating the wash water, and then also potentially the PET flakes. So that's what the hot caustic resistant ink refers to.
Is there any requirement for ink testing to have a PET extruded plaque from a third party and to review that in terms of the ink testing?
Again, I think if it's as Kurt mentioned, if it's an ink that's been that's gone through the critical guidance process and has been approved, we won't require actually making a plaque. I mean, again, if the submitter would like to kind of do that to confirm, but I think as long as they're able to show that for instance, the ink is completely washing off, or and again, it's gone through the critical guidance process, I think we're okay with not having to mold a plaque necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would add to that, there's a reason for that. Okay, is that, I mean, going through critical guidance, there are inks that will wash off, and guess what? They redeposit on the in a very dilute fashion all over the PET. So that one label that washed off just made a whole bunch of PET, whatever color, that color. So we want the ink to wash off, and then the critical guidance test, part of that is to make sure that it didn't redeposit and bleed onto the PET. And that's why they actually do a plaque and then they test the color of that plaque.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, that would have been done already in the critical guidance when we would have said, and we're going to call out a critical guidance ink or some, ink that's already received critical guidance. So it won't be part of MPG part of it, but it would be part of a prerequisite for MPG for that ink.
Okay. And in terms of the cost for the technical committee review, let's say, a converter's using everything on the list from your MPG lists. All the inks, adhesives, substrates have all previously gone through critical guidance testing. Can you talk a little bit about the cost of the review process for the MPG recognition?
So we've actually structured the cost a little differently from the critical guidance program. For the MPG program, we have it based on the size of the company. For one thing, that's applying for the recognition. So we have tried to give a little bit of a break to a smaller company, or maybe like a family-owned small label producer. And also the cost, the fee is dependent on whether or not a company is a member of APR, because we would like to give APR members again a break in that. So I would be happy if somebody needs more information. I would be happy to send out like a fee chart we have. Also, we provide, I think for the initial fee, we can have up to 5 different design features included as a part of that initial review. So again, if somebody needs more information, please reach out to me. I can provide those details.
Yeah, and I would add that it's also families of products. So if you have it's not, well, it was on this bottle and this size and this bottle and this size. We when we're talking about labels, we recognize families of products. We're trying to make it as efficient as possible and simple for everybody.
Excellent. Is there any benefit of aligning the label substrate with the primary container material, such as a PE label on a PE container, or is there not really a differentiated advantage in recyclability in relation to a PP label on a PE container? Is there any consideration being given to single stream materials being more preferred than mixed materials?
Yeah, I could take that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, okay, I will. So we have 3 different categories. So 3 big buckets. Now, certainly within those buckets, there are more preferred and more detrimental items. So we would always prefer to have the same material, the same label material as the bottle wall. However, we don't always distinguish that, because it's in one big preferred bucket or one big detrimental bucket. Now, where it does affect let's say a brand company that has a Ellen MacArthur commitment, is the Ellen MacArthur commitment. They want to look at an entire package and make that circular. And so the label is considered part of that package. And where they come up is they say 95% of the package needs to actually be recovered and reused so that it doesn't negatively affect quality. So when you put a closure on there and you put or maybe it's got a sprayer on there, so the label can be important to that, but we certainly would prefer, the most preferred would be to have the same label substrate as the bottle. Now, where it applies to polyethylene, the labels are so small compared to the bottle normally percent, by weight percent, that a polypropylene label on a HDPE bottle is preferred, but an both of them being HDPE would be more preferred, but we don't distinguish that.
Gotcha. All right. And so just to clarify, a pressure sensitive label on a clear PET container, the label needs to wash off and float, and the inks need to stay on the label. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Right.
Okay.
Unless you came up with a CPET label, a CPET pressure sensitive label, and I'm not aware of any of those being produced yet.
Mm. As a supplier to label converters and the milk jug example you just brought up, have you tested labels that might have any type of UV varnish or lamination / film that could be applied to the label at the very end? Have these been tested? Do they did not really see if they had? So a UV varnish or lamination.
Sandeep, I have to admit that's beyond my my expertise. So Sandeep, if you have some experience in that, but I don't know.
Yeah, those I think would actually go through the critical guidance program, because again, I think especially if it's an innovation, as we talked about in our in the presentation, that if it's something that is new to the market, or if something that has not been around for a while, it would need to be tested through the critical guidance program, which would then go through the full battery of testing.
Okay. So here's I think this is our last question, actually. You guys probably need a drink of water by this point. These have been great questions. In terms of the state of California, so pathway for a label converter, they used MPG items for their label. They present the testing, etc., recognition to the brand owner. The brand owner shows the MPG recognition to the state of California. Is that pathway correct? From what you understand so far?
Yeah, so from what we understand so far, yes. All the details are being worked out. It's not, the law isn't actually being, executed right now, but they're trying to work all those kind of details out. I would, if the questioner is a APR member, I'd make sure that attend the California updates at the APR meeting. But yeah, there's a lot of details on how California is really going to work that are not worked out yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems a little, it seems like APR is not real sure what they're supporting and what they're questioning as well in terms of what California is doing, based on some of the public statements that the APR has made about the California program.
That's right. We're kind of happy and scared at the same time, because we don't really know what this means.
Well, that is the end of our questioning, and I just can't thank you both enough for really walking us through this very complex topic. But I think that, there's a huge opportunity here for an efficient use of time and resources to get the right kind of labels out there. So thank you all who attended. Thank you, Sandeep and Kurt. And for attendees, you can expect to receive this presentation in a couple of days. So thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Great. Thank you so much, Roz.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye now.